There certainly are many ways to measure the worth of a species, and from many different perspectives. Appropriately, in this 4-species catalog, we will use the Kardashev scale. The Kardashev scale was designed by Nikolai Kardashev as a hypothetical model to assess a civilization's advancement in power by the level of energy it is able to harness, control, and utilize. A Type 1 civilization can harness and use the entire energy of a planet and its immediate surroundings. This civilization can control weather and employ both solar and fusion energy. A Type 2 civilization can harness and use the entire energy of a star and by some means is immune to extinction. A Type 3 civilization can harness and use the energy available within a galaxy and can utilize fission. A Type 4 civilization can harness and use the energy of galaxies, including dark energy, as well as utilize fission. Humanity is not yet a Type 1 civilization and is currently mathematically calculated at 0.72 on the Kardashev scale, using approximately 16 terawatts of energy per year, produced primarily by oil, battery, steam, nuclear, and solar. Merman, a Type 0 civilization. Species name, cetacean, or cetoid. The deeper physiology of the merfolk is not readily known or available, although the descriptions of their physique is replete throughout history and current-day sightings. Reports agree on these points. Height, varying but similar to the modern-day human. Weight, slender but with large abdomen and large tail muscle. It is believed that they are more dense in flesh and muscle, and weigh more than humans by an average of 50 pounds. Most of our planet is ocean, and these mysterious beings are isolationists. Their territory is nearly limitless and much larger than the dry land territory of humanity. They are almost impossible to find. Hands also appear human, but in rare glimpses, it is unclear if they are always 5 fingers or sometimes 4. The fingers, however, are thickly webbed. Eyes appear to be dark in color and larger than humans by a portion, with apparently thick clear lenses creating high reflection to light that would be indicative of a deep sea creature. Head, about a fourth larger than a human's and reported to have a skull crest, or high ridge from the crown running to the back of the head. Shoulders are that exactly of a man or woman. Arms, too, running long and slender, are the identical shape of a human. Chest area is that exactly of a human, with the exception of the female, whose breasts are considerably smaller and flatter than a human female. Hair. There does not seem to be any hair by definition, but instead a ridged and soft tissue flap that runs to the shoulders, down the center of the back, in various aquatic colors of black, greens, blues, grays, and whites. The flap lapels are not large, and there can be more than one. Their faces are quite human in appearance, with the exception of large eyes and small noses. Their faces are more rounded, and their lips are like a human's and run thin. There appears to be no genitalia, but this is yet unknown, and procreation is a mystery as to whether the eggs are fertilized before or after they are released from the female. It is, however, suspected that the female does give birth, yet there is no evidence of the procreation method. The lower torso is similar to that of a dolphin, yet less barrel-shaped and more graceful with limber movement. Communication is by sonar and echolocation. It is believed that they age as a human does, losing color and body mass as they become older. Their lifespan is not yet known.
History has given us due cause to take a second look and wonder after the credibility of modern marine scientists who make such loud claim that these beings do not exist, while in the next breath report that 80% of the sea is yet unexplored and unknown to science. Modern science has taken to dispelling the so-called myth of the merman as to ramblings of men who had been at sea too long and had begun fantasizing upon porpoises and seals. Yet the most numerous reports are in the 19th century and by credible and well-respected individuals writing in prominent papers and are not so easily thrown off or ignored. Legendary Captain John Smith made a report of a large-eyed, green-haired mermaid off the coast of Newfoundland and explicitly explained that he felt kindness and affection for this being until he realized that she was not fully human. Modern theorists in marine biology have often shrugged off such records of the many sightings by those credible seafaring explorers, such as Captain John Smith and Christopher Columbus, by stating they were possibly sighting the dugong or the manatee of unusual physical traits. It would be a long stretch to believe that a famed expert explorer, such as Captain John Smith, could make such an error with his affections. It was well known that these merfolk were nearly impossible to catch. Any that were ever caught were surely by accident, in a fishing net, or after a disaster such as a tsunami. There is a long-standing and ongoing aquatic ape theory in Britain, proposing that the mermaid may actually be an early branch of the evolutionary trek of humanity that took to the sea and continued to evolve there, that invited deeper investigation into the possibilities of such a creature evolving on this planet. Technically, it could have easily happened. Ramblings of men who had been at sea too long. In our modern age, we have snapshots and actual video footage of beings that would be very difficult to imposter. Is there enough footage of this extremely elusive being to warrant a discovery of another species? Is there enough history to uphold authentic footage? Humanoid hybrids have already been confirmed on planet Earth. The scientific method states that if evidence is given of a thing, it remains valid until disproven, and until Noah can finish exploring 4/5 of the world's seas, it can make no such claim according to its own rule of scientific method.
As with all earthly stories of antiquity, the first legends of mermen and mermaids have dissolved into myth over the span of human evolution, as have all other accounts of any equally intelligent species or beings. Whereas human evolution took several unprecedented spikes of rapid progression, other species have appeared to remain slow and even sloth in their evolutionary pace. The first written and oral kept accounts of mermaids are found around 1000 BC in Syria, whereupon an elevated being of great beauty either jumped or was thrown into a body of water. It then turned half into a fish, with the upper half remaining as a human type in appearance.
Then you realize that the surface of the moon has been explored more than the deep oceans. And you look at the fact that even to this day, there are still large animals being discovered. There have been 2 new species of whales discovered in just the past decade.
All throughout history, sailors and explorers have repeatedly reported merfolk sightings and incidents. Christopher Columbus himself reported several sightings off the coast of Haiti in 1493. He described them in his ship logs as not as pretty as commonly depicted, but somehow, in the face, they look like men.
Mermaids have been a subject of fascination for centuries. Cultures from all around the world all seem to have mermaids in their folklores, all with very similar description.
Giant animals found for the first time ever in just the past 10 years. So yeah, it's possible. It's still possible to stay hidden.
Once thought of as a type of god, these enigmatic beings were worshipped or honored by name and were heavily associated with the moon and feminine mystique. Oannes in ancient Babylonia, altar goddess in Syria, Tricito in Philistine. They appear with descriptions in ancient Roman and Greek legends, whereupon the stories of the sirens become famous by a strange allure and the distinct siren sounds that these creatures make. To this day, they are called Sirena in Spain. In British Cornwall, the mermaids were called merrymaids. In Ireland, they were called the Merrows. They were known in Scandinavia as the Neck, with the male name the Havfrau and the female name Havmen.
throughout history, civilizations all around the world, now they all have tales of mermaids and they all describe them about the same way. Now this is a time when cultures had no communication amongst each other.
In Norway, they were known as the Havfine, and there were warnings that accompanied the legends that these beings were temperamental and unpredictable, and while some would be kind, others would be cruel, and it was best to avoid them when possible. Merely to see one was considered a bad omen and would bring bad luck.
In Kiryat Yam, Israel, this is the only place in the world where a $1 million reward is up for grabs for the first person who can provide conclusive footage capturing a real mermaid. And this reward isn't given by some local hack. This is a government-sanctioned reward because there has been numerous mermaid sightings there.
In Germany, they are known as the Meerfrau. In Russia, they are called the Rusalka and the Vodiani. Bestiaries of the Middle Ages include the merman as a very real being, and all educated men knew of them. It is well documented that the rise of Christianity took particular care in quieting the public fears and interest in the merfolk as one of their reform objectives, and along with other beings of non-human status, they became a myth. Thousands of years of records, legends, and written accounts have been carefully preserved in history and left behind for us by our ancestors. Rather than insulting their intelligence in testimonies, it behooves us to respectfully honor their reasons and look into their repeated advice. Who and what are the mermen? Sasquatch, a Type 0 civilization. Species category: anthropoid, hominid, human hybrid. An anthropoid is a being that resembles both human and ape. Other names: Bigfoot, Yeti, Alamos, mink. Physiology: height 6 to 8 foot tall, weight 200 to 400 pounds. Hair: full body coverage that grays with age, thick, coarse, wire-type strands. Hair color: black, dark gray, reddish brown. Skin: black or gray, on face and hands with a smooth leather texture. Voice: deep, gruff, growling. Stature: bulky, large shoulders, short neck, tall upright spine, boxy torso, covered with thick hair. Eyes: black to dark brown. Arms: about a quarter longer than human arms. Hands: 5-fingered, thick nails. Gait: long strides with high swinging arms at the side. Appearance: half ape, half human, but is not ape nor monkey at all. Reproduction: believed to reproduce in the same way that humans reproduce. DNA: part human, large percent modern human, part unknown. DNA is both double-stranded and single-stranded, implying a hybrid. The Sasquatch DNA was tested by 2 universities, a separate DNA lab, and in 3 full genomes. Science is quite aware of this hominid hybrid.
My name's Dr. Melba Ketchum. We've done a published DNA study with 3 whole genomes from purported Sasquatch samples.
Almost immediately, since the public employment of the camera and photography in modern society, evidence of Sasquatch legends have emerged. The first reports of an anthropoid being fitting the description of the modern-day Sasquatch goes back hundreds of years in Tibet, the Yeti. It is recorded that this species was nearly wiped out by farmers protecting their livestock, and a campaign to poison and kill off the Yeti was undertaken.
We spent 5 years doing this study. We started out with just simple testing and progressed all the way to whole genomes. You've heard of the Human Genome Project. We did the same thing the Human Genome Project did, except we did it on 3 samples instead of 1. The new technology allows us to sequence efficiently and quickly.
At the foothills of Mount St. Helens and came across a very interesting stack of bones that turned out to be a stack of deer bones that had seemingly giant human teeth marks taken out of them. In 2014, 2 of my former students came across 2 similar stacks of bones on the other side of Mount St. Helens that had very similar giant hominin front incisor teeth marks. We call them dental avulsion attributed injuries.
The University of Texas Southwestern did the sequencing. They also did the analysis. There's very little alignment, meaning it doesn't match anything. It's novel, it's new, there's nothing to compare it with. There's a type of DNA called mitochondrial DNA, and you may have seen some of the advertisements about getting your genealogy done. This is the first thing we did with these samples, and surprisingly enough, all of them tested 100% modern human.
The estimation of the being's description is 8 foot, 8 inches tall, with a 16 by 7 inch foot size, a step length of 72 inches, a stride of 144 inches, all of which are double the size of a common human being.
I also did contact the Department of Fish and Wildlife here in Washington State. They did a preliminary assessment of this bone stacking behavior, and they assured me that no, indeed, that there wasn't any currently classified carnivore taxa that could possibly be responsible for that type of material alone. After that, we did some significant measurements on all of the teeth structural signatures. And after about 9 months worth of very intensive research, we came to some very provocative conclusions that included the possibilities, at that time, now confirmed, that a giant hominin creature had lived and had been living in the Mount St. Helens vicinity for some time.
Forensic dental analysis of 7 specimens confirms these findings.
One of the samples in the study, we actually had enough DNA that we did 2 different extractions, and it repeated. So we got consistency there. All of them turned out human. The New York University did a number of these and tested human. He sent it to Paleo Labs, tested human mitochondrial DNA. He sent it to my lab, we tested human mitochondrial DNA. Our 2 other labs prior to mine had tested the sample and got the same mitochondrial DNA to human.
This is forensic dental science. This is material that's hard science that cannot be faked. There were no tool marks, no fire damage, no predator correction, no scavenger marks. Based upon our analysis of 2 different types of science. One is called forensic dental toponymy, the other is called neoichnology. And both of these sciences are subdivisions of paleontology.
We just want people to understand this is a serious study. It cost us $500,000. We have a lot of supporting material of all different disciplines. All of it comes together to make the proof.
We gotta get out of here. We're too close. We gotta get out of here.
Sasquatch is a human hominid being. Modern humanity is faced with this question. How are we going to entreat this species? What are we going to do?
The history and legends of Sasquatch and the Yeti go back centuries, if not farther. Bigfoot is a term coined by the footprints left behind that gave rare physical evidence for the existence of these beings. They are discreet and elusive and do not mingle with humans.
I set out to recognize the species and to vindicate the tens of thousands of people who have been severely impacted in their lives by simply coming out and telling the truth. I mean, I've got hours of footage.
This is forensic dental science. This is material that's hard science that cannot be faked. Now confirms that a giant hominin creature had lived and had been living in the Mount St. Helens vicinity for some time.
My name is Dennis Cole. I was involved with the Erickson project in order to gather substantial evidence on the existence of the Sasquatch. It took thousands of man hours. I can't even begin to calculate the efforts it took.
Sasquatch is said to be the king of the forest, ruling the woods, wildlands, and mountains over other beasts of the region. Sasquatch is not as savage as presumed, but merely wild.
You're not dealing with an animal. You're dealing with something that walks on two legs, has children, and obviously through other types of research and audio, they have a language. And what happens is there's a respect built up between those visitations of them coming to that property and you not overstepping a bound of chasing them down and putting cameras everywhere.
The difference between the Yeti and the Sasquatch is that the Sasquatch lives in North America and the Yeti lives in the Himalayas.
We have 111 data points that say it's not Gigantopithecus blacki, it's a human being, and to shoot one would be murder. And I know several people who claim to have been associated with people who have drawn blood. This is where these two camps diverge. The old camp, and I'm trained to do it that same way. I'm trained to bring in the holotype. This is a human hybrid, and that it's wrong in the most profound way to set about trying to go out and shoot one of these guys and bring them in on a slab.
Is potential economic fallout. I mean, they are in all 49 states. They occupy an area greater than the range of the black bear. They're found where the black bear are on a far greater range. And what do you do for environmental studies on this? Because I mean, it's huge.
Newspaper articles and clippings number into the hundreds in North America, Russia, and other countries. Recently, DNA testing has given rise to substantiated proof of the existence, lifestyle, and genetics of the famed Sasquatch.
It would create such a huge nightmare for the state infrastructure and the park services that there would be many special interest groups that want to come in and study the grizzly and cordon off vast areas of wilderness so people couldn't access them to protect the species. So imagine that on a greater scale with something that's more closely related to us it's phenomenal. I mean, you could imagine the repercussions from the acknowledgement or discovery, official discovery of something so huge.
The camera has provided unmistakable repetition of characteristics such as the non-aggressive nature of the anthropoids toward humans, and their long swing arm stride and the straight upright walk.
We're not calling for habitat because they're going to live where they're going to live, and it's not necessary to have habitat, just protection from hunting or harassment.
Further behavior repetitions are the throwing of rocks and breaking up of trees and branches to display anger at being hunted, followed, and stalked.
When people go on to get their bear tag, they have to read a pamphlet that these creatures are in the area, and they have to sign off on it. I think they should have the same rights as any other people, and there should be some hunter education, because that's what we deal with directly, is misidentifications every year of someone mistakenly shooting a Sasquatch thinking it was a bear.
Modern society has supplied a plethora of camera photographs and film of the hybrids, and it is believed that their natural habitat is shrinking with the explosion of human population growth.
We could be here today with a body on the slab. It would have been easier for them to shoot one than to do what they did to get footage of it. And the fact of the matter is that these things are people. They have families like you and I do. They play with their kids. They have language, and it's not right to kill one. We've got plenty of evidence here to prove it without doing it.
How many of them do you think are out there?
Oh, there's thousands. Oh, this is all over North America and Canada. Okay. In fact, they're worldwide. Well, we did the most cutting-edge science that can be done. We did 3 whole genomes. You've heard of the Human Genome Project? Well, they did 1 genome for a human to start with. We did 3 of these. They were closely monitored by the personnel. They had a scientist on staff. There's been 4 other labs here in the United States that tested these samples and all got human mitochondrial results.
They seem to be quite intelligent, quite private, and certainly not unaware of the violent and aggressive nature of humanity. Humanity needs to realize that these are human hybrids. This is human DNA.